News cycles. 13 years after Charles Moore's first voyage to the North Pacific Gyre, another catamaran sailed across the same trash vortex. Plastiki was built from 12,500 used water bottles. The bottle craft traveled through the gyre not as trash, but as part of a headline-grabbing expedition with a message. Plastic is not the enemy, said environmentalist and expedition leader David the Rothschild, but it's our understanding of disposal and reuse that's to blame. Of the 9 billion tons of plastic produced since 1950, just 2 billion tons are still in use, a 2017 study found. That means the rest of the plastic litters Earth as trash. A large study of the Atlantic and Arctic Oceans and the Mediterranean Sea in 2014 confirmed that a great deal of this plastic pollution is in the ocean. This survey has shown that human litter is present in all marine habitats, from beaches to the most remote and deepest parts of the oceans. Most of the deep sea remains unexplored by humans, and these are our first visits to many of these sites, but we were shocked to find that our rubbish has got there before us, said marine biologist Carrie Howell of England's Plymouth University. Could a vacuum cleaner suck up the plastic from the ocean surface the way a home vacuum cleans a carpet? Designers of a solar-powered floating vacuum think so. Others believe ocean currents will naturally push and gather plastic against plastic barriers where it can be transported to land for recycling. But Australian ecologist Chris Wilcox worries that it would be as if you were vacuuming your living room and I'm standing at the doorway with a bag of dust and a fan. You can constantly keep vacuuming, but you will never catch up. About 80% of the ocean's trash comes from land. How can it be prevented from slipping downstream? Scientists turn to nature for ideas. They marvel at nature's efficient system of handling waste. A dead whale or giant redwood tree does not lie on the seafloor or forest floor for centuries. An army of small microscopic organisms turns waste into energy in a form of recycling that means the food chain never ends. These decomposers break dead matter into nutrients and other chemicals, providing food for themselves and plenty to help new grass or phytoplankton grow. Scientists have discovered, often by accident, that among nature's army of decomposers, some can almost miraculously biodegrade plastic. Wax-loving worms enjoy munching on plastic bags. Mealworms willingly feast on plastic foam. During digestion, these animals secrete enzymes to break down molecular bonds. Even tough plastic water bottles can turn into a meal for bacteria. These microbes use enzymes to cut up long polymers into bite-sized sections. Scientists admire how, in a world full of plastics, they have found ways to turn them into food. If you put a bacteria in a situation where they've only got one food source to consume, over time they will adapt to do that, said microbiologist Enzo Palumbo. I would not be surprised if samples of ocean plastics contained microbes that are happily growing on this material. Some scientists are not hopeful that biodegradation will solve the plastic problem. They wonder whether worm and bacteria appetites can keep up with the rapid production of plastic. They also worry whether people will trust these new waste removal methods too much. The public thinks that biodegradability means if I throw it away, it will completely go away, said biochemistry professor Ramani Narayan. They don't even know what going away means. Tracy Mincer, who studies plastics in the ocean at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution in Massachusetts, said he was impressed with the research on plastic-eating worms, but wondered how it would help. When I think it through, I don't really know where it gets us. I don't see how microbes degrading plastics is any better than putting plastic bottles in a recycling bin so they can be melted down to make new ones. Simply finding new ways to recycle plastic cannot solve the problem. Even trying to gather and recycle plastic in the gyres is like mopping up a leaking trap without fixing the tap itself, said oceanographer Eric Van Sebel. It's much better to do it as close to the source as possible before it has a chance to interact with marine life. In a grim reminder that plastic is leaking beyond the subtropics, a 2017 study found that microplastics in Arctic waters are a gyre-shredded collection from all over the world. That same year, the United Nations declared war on ocean plastic and asked countries to join the battle against single-use plastics. It is past time that we tackle the plastic problem that blights our oceans. Plastic pollution is surfing onto Indonesian beaches, settling on the ocean floor at the North Pole, and rising through the food chain onto our dinner tables, said Eric Solheim, UN Environment Director. We've stood by too long as the problem has gotten worse. It must stop. Life cycle of a bottle. It takes billions of gallons of oil to manufacture all of the plastic water bottles that are used worldwide each year. Yet only about 30% of plastic drink bottles are recycled in the US. The cost of making plastics that never get recycled means that about 100 billion is lost to the economy each year, according to a World Economic Forum report. Future populations are going to look at landfills like they are gold mines, full of resources, and wonder what we were all thinking, said Jason Faranek, project manager at California Recycling Facility. Water bottles to be recycled ride a truck to a sorting facility where they are sorted into various types of plastic. They travel onward to a recycling facility where they are washed, sterilized, and ground into small flakes. Some will become new bottles. First, they are melted, extruded like toothpaste, snipped into pellets, and shipped. At manufacturing plants, the pellets are melted, stretched, and blown with air into bottle shapes and then filled with water again. A few years ago, it seemed that new types of plastics might put traditional recycling plants out of business. Plastic bottles with chemicals added to them to make them biodegradable arrive in stores along with new plastics made of cornstarch. But in order to biodegrade, these plastics need certain temperatures and exposure to sunlight under tightly controlled conditions. Inside the layers of a landfill or on the seafloor, the new plastics can take as long to break down as the petroleum-based ones. So, recycling continues. Plastic production is expected to double in the next decade and triple by 2050. Every day, people fight the war on plastic pollution. They drink from refillable water bottles and take cloth bags to fill at the grocery store. Many countries are getting on board by taxing plastic bags to encourage shoppers to use fewer of them. More than 200 U.S. cities have banned plastic bags, and so have such countries as Kenya, China, Rwanda, and France. The UK, Australia, and Canada are moving toward banning the sale of products containing microbeads. And slowly, campaigns against plastic drinking straws are convincing some restaurants to ban them, or at least to offer one only if a customer requests it. But what if cleaning up the ocean does not require a war on plastic, but rather a war on litter? All of that stuff was in a human's hand at one point or another, said ecologist Wilcox. The essence of the solution is to provide incentives for people not to throw this stuff away. It is the cheapest, simplest, and far most efficient solution to the problem. On a record-breaking solo voyage around the world in 2005, British sailor Ellen MacArthur learned to waste nothing. Your boat is your entire world, and what you take with you when you leave is all you have. That's food, fuel, clothes, even toilet roll and toothpaste. That's what we do. And when we leave, we manage it down to the last drop of diesel and the last packet of food. No experience in my life could have gotten me a better understanding of the definition of the word finite. What we have out there is all we have. There is no more, MacArthur said. Our global economy is no different. It's entirely dependent on finite materials we only have once in the history of humanity. In 2010, she started a foundation to help change attitudes toward waste of many kinds. Like fellow sailor Moore, MacArthur admired the efficiency of nature's cycles. Life itself has existed for billions of years and is continually adapted to use materials effectively. It's a complex system, but within it, there is no waste, she said. MacArthur and others who share her ideas believe that people must leave behind the throwaway living habits of the 1950s. Nature offers a solution. Plastic and other non-living materials can be part of an endless cycle of usefulness, like nature's food chains. In a throwaway culture, plastics travel a straight, quick path from petroleum to raw plastic to useful product to trash can to landfill to the ocean. With a different approach, plastic could travel a circular path in which it never became waste. Plastic has become synonymous with cheap and worthless, when in fact those chains of hydrocarbons ought to be regarded as among the most valuable substance on the planet, wrote author Susan Frankel. Plastic has been celebrated for being adaptable, long-lasting, and lightweight but strong. Finding ways to reuse it will benefit the world and its future generations. Recycled plastic bags, bottles, and foam packaging can be turned into playground equipment, park benches, clothing, carpeting, and car batteries. Recycled plastic bags can be used to create asphalt for paving city streets. Plastic provide materials for construction, medical equipment, cars, airplanes, 3D printing, ink, and spacecraft. If we could build an economy that would use these things rather than use them up, we could build a future that could really work in the long term, said MacArthur. Then plastic would not end up floating uselessly in the ocean. Geologist Patricia Corcoran wondered whether in the future people will find plastic agglomerate buried in the soil and realize that it is a permanent symbol of humankind's pollution of our natural world. She wondered whether the planet will be by then smothered with out of control plastic waste, or will people have solved the problem of plastic pollution? As a start, she said, we can all pitch in and help through the beach cleanups and not using as many plastic products. Maybe by raising awareness of how serious the problem is, people will start to say, okay, that's kind of disgusting, so maybe I should think twice before I buy a bunch of balloons or use a straw. Even small things will make a difference.